Listen, I would just say as a general matter, in June, our unemployment rate hit 3.5%, which is was the lowest on record. In July, it went lower. It's 3.3%. So those are good things. So we're really proud of that accomplishment, but we also recognize there are a lot of winds blowing in Washington and around the world, and there's a certain fragility. I think you all see this. So we're spiking no footballs. But the contributors to that job reality begin and end with education. From pre-K, which we're expanding, right up through higher education, and including explicitly apprenticeships and fellowships, and a good dose of that educational emphasis is in the STEM field. Obviously, any discrimination of any kind is completely and utterly unacceptable, so it's my hope that we have a job market in New Jersey in the STEM economy and beyond that works for everybody. And I don't see this as an either-or set of choices. That we have long been the beacon of immigration around the world. I'm guided by the actual poem on the base of the Statue of Liberty, not the doctored one we heard about last week. That's the America that I know. That's the America that I believe in. That's the beacon that this country has stood for in so many respects for centuries. And I don't see that this is an either-or. I believe if we get it right in this economy, this is a job market, particularly in the innovation space, that can work for everybody, and that's what we're committed to.
Thanks, sir. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good morning. It's on the train one day.
Michael?
We don't want to be on TV.
No,
You guys don't bite, do you?
No.
No.
On the Newark water situation, you're not asking for a state of emergency.
Sorry.
You're not asking for a state of emergency.
We are not.
And yet you want federal funding. Don't those two seem to be going off in different directions?
No. I appreciate the question. Completely unrelated points. I think you call a state of emergency if you've outspent your capacity, if you are beyond your means, whether it's the community, the county, or the state, and we're not in that situation. Secondly, we do need the federal government, the EPA in particular, on the following things in the near term, and they are cooperating with us, and that's a good thing, on testing. As you recall, we're trying to balance an abundance of caution, but also making sure that folks understand that there are 3 data points that led to the steps we've taken. So the EPA, for instance, right now is working with the DEP and Newark's team, which is an outstanding team, in expanding the amount of testing we're doing into the hundreds over the next couple of weeks. If this goes on for a period of time, we're probably going to need other sources of bottled water. At the moment, we don't, but that's another potential role the federal government could play. The big one is the longer-term one, and that is money, not just for Newark or New Jersey, but for the country, to have a renaissance investment in water infrastructure. Our congressional delegation has been very good about trying to push for that, but to me, it would be a huge step for the country, for the Trump administration, for Congress to take that step and say, you know what, we're going to have a 10-year investment in water infrastructure all over the country. This is hardly a Newark only or a New Jersey only challenge. As you may recall, Newark has started their own 10-year plan earlier this year to replace the lead lines, and that's what we're talking about here. We're honored to be supporting them in a meaningful way. But there are challenges like that up and down the state and around the country, and the federal government playing a major role in that renaissance investment is an indispensable role.
Governor, you've declared states of emergency for like weather systems. There was a Clipper system that came through the North Jersey. Why not? And that lasted no more than like 12
Correct.
hours. Why not in this situation to ensure that every home gets adequate water, that everybody's educated, and that you have a logistical framework and plan for? I mean, we're talking about kids and pregnant women potentially drinking poison water.
So on the storms, Charlie, we would declare a state of emergency, for example, to allow us to ban tractor trailers on inclines on the interstates, where they notoriously, in bad weather, jackknife and cause A, casualties, and B, enormous amount of backup and congestion. And we put them on and take them off as the storm passes through and the conditions allow us to. We are with Newark at the front, with the state right beside them, and the county. In Essex, we had a big summit yesterday with other communities and the county leaders. We believe, based on the resources we have available, whether it's communication, bottled water, the plan to flush this new chemical orthophosphate through the system, that is all in train. And remember, folks, the source of the water is not the issue. That's a big difference than what they had at Flint. It's the lead lines that carry that water. And so if you roll the tape back, Newark had already begun its plan to replace all of their lead lines over 10 years. As I mentioned, we're helping. They're already flushing through orthophosphate, which is replacing a chemical that had lost its efficacy. And we are focused explicitly on the Pequannock source through the lead lines that serve, that come into those homes. And as you mentioned, I want to use this every opportunity with the press to remind folks that the very elderly, and in particular pregnant, nursing moms, and kids under the age of 6, if you're in one of those lead line homes and you're sourced by the Pequannock source, take extra care to use bottled water to drink and to cook. And by the way, for anybody, bathing is not an issue, period, full stop.
One question, what gives you confidence or that this administration, which has snubbed New Jersey on the gateway and has shown no real interest yet, or sustained interest in infrastructure, is going to come to the rescue? And secondly, there is a bill in the legislature that would that's been sitting there that would provide $400 million in water infrastructure bonding. Jack McKeon's bill, I think it is. Could you address those two things?
Well, on the latter, I would not typically talk about something that isn't on our desk or we made a decision on, and we're, by the way, making decisions in the next 24 hours on a whole set of stuff. But the notion of a smart water infrastructure investment at the community, county, state, and federal level, I would be all in for. The devil's in the details. The first part was, so you asked me this the other day. Because we had listen, our Commissioner of Department of Environmental Protection met with the EDA administrator on Thursday. We didn't, I don't think, got everything we needed, but the testing cooperation right now, other than the bottled water getting distributed and done well to make sure we communicate accurately what the facts are, getting the testing done into the hundreds and not 3 is job number 1. And the EPA is cooperating with us on that. So I can't tell you on whether or not what the prospects are for a federal water infrastructure bill. I hope they're good. But in the here and now, the cooperation level has been good.
But Governor, with the tax break
you declare a
extension,
state of emergency, then you get back those hundreds of data points, and they show that the crisis is not as bad as the initial 3. Is that why you're not declaring a state of emergency?
No. Again, explicitly, we're not declaring a state of emergency because we don't need to. We have the resources, we have the capabilities at the moment. This is something we will revisit depending on where the road takes us. Right now, it's bottled water, particularly for the most impacted communities, so the very old and the very young and the pregnant and the nursing. It's communicating. It's aggressive testing. Let's see how those tests turn out. Again, we had 3 data points, one of which was, and they all reduced the lead in the water. So let's all remember what the facts are here. They all reduced the level in the water. 1 sufficiently, 2 not sufficiently. Of the 2, the private resident he or she had bought another filter and used that alongside the one that the EPA had recommended, and that filter actually succeeded in reducing the lead levels below the 15 parts per billion. So it's 3 murky data points. We're not taking any chances, but we also don't want to panic people. We want to make sure that we're doing this responsibly.
Governor, with the tax break extension.
Hold on one sec, sorry.
Governor, the tax break extension that's on your desk, you have just over a day to sign it.
Tax break extension.
Grow NJ.
Oh, tax incentives.
Are all options on the table with that bill?
All options are on the table, but if it's as is, we will veto it, and that way our position hasn't changed.
Governor, going back to Newark, who
Hold-
was fired because he was making anti-Semitic comments, and Mr. Jeffrey Dye.
Yes.
He was making comments on social media. He also had a criminal history. How was he hired and now fired by the Department of Labor? And do you know why he was fired?
The Commissioner of Labor addressed this yesterday. I'll leave it to him. I just will make 2 comments. Number 1, the social media that I have been made aware of is incredibly offensive and completely inconsistent with my values. Period. Not close. As a separate matter, he was relieved of his duty and told that his work was no longer required at the state.
Governor,
Were
the
the
issue
concerns
of
raised
lead
to you,
pipes,
Governor?
this is a decades-old issue, well known for decades. Are officials now trying to pin this on the federal government? I mean, you mentioned federal government 10 times at your press conference in Newark the other day.
Yeah. I'm surprised it
Is
wasn't
this-
20.
Well, it was 10. I count.
We're not trying to pin it. I'm not trying to pin it on the federal government. No, I'm saying that this is a national reality, and when you have a national reality, you need the federal government to play a role. This is no different than a lot of things we're dealing with right now: gun control, lead water infrastructure, the environment. There's a long list of things where states, no matter how good a job they do, no matter how good a job a community or a county does, some things are just bigger than a state or a community, and water infrastructure is on that list. So we're not pinning it on them. We're asking and making the obvious point, I think, and our congressional delegation has been terrific, and in-state guys like Assemblyman Tom Giblin have been fierce advocates. That's just a fact. We need the federal government because this is bigger than any one state or any one
In the
community.
Newark metropolitan area alone, there are hundreds and hundreds of communities that have lead lines. Is the federal government supposed to? Isn't that the role of local and state government?
I think it's the role of all levels of government, with all due respect, including the federal government. Somebody's yelling.
Governor, in that August 9th letter from
Hold
the
on, ma'am.
EPA,
Governor, who hired Jeffrey Dye?
I've said everything I'm going to say.
concerns
about it.
in the
raised-
Please.
August
Got
9th
Jeffrey
letter
Dye
from
to
the
you,
EPA,
Governor.
there was no distinction made between the Wanacue service area and the Pequannock service area. That preliminary injunction that's being dealt with in federal court right now, it was discovered that it might have been Newark City officials that made the call to give bottled water to one area and not the other. Do you see an issue with that? Do you have any comment on that?
I don't have any comment on it other than we have been focused first and foremost on the Pequannock source water which is clean, by the way, among the best sources you'll find, going through the lead lines that serve the communities.
Weren't concerns raised to you, Governor, and at what point do you say to your cabinet, we need to get the hiring under control in my administration because this has been a persistent problem for you?
So let me just say the following, and this is not specific to the individual. This is a general comment, and I think the Commissioner of Labor referenced this in his comments or his team's comments yesterday. First of all, I have about 64,000 people who work for me. This was a low-level employee in the Department of Labor. So let's just make sure everybody has that as a frame. Secondly, without specific to him, I want to make a general comment. I've said this before, and you've asked me questions about other folks. I want to be the state where people get a second chance. People, if they make reparations, if they make up for what they've done, I'd like to be the state where folks get a second chance. And I stand by that.
Well, there are
Governor,
examples
are
of
you
people
concerned?
getting
Have you had
second
any
chances.
conversations, speaking of the federal level, with Booker and Menendez, Payne? Just are you satisfied with the level of support? Because right now it appears everybody's just you and the mayor of Newark.
No. I've had conversations with Booker and Menendez, with Chairman Pallone, Albio Sires sat beside me yesterday. The congressional delegation has been very good about this. Senator Booker in particular has been for a long time before this, has been pushing for legislation at the federal level. And by the way, there's a sense that we just got to this 2 weeks ago. We've been working with Newark since day one. I've been talking about lead and the challenges and what are we going to do about it since long before I got elected governor. So we've all been on this. This is a long road that we're going to have to travel together.
Governor, one more.
Yeah.
Senator Sweeney was quoted the other day as saying he thinks maybe we should make lying to the legislature a fourth-degree crime. I wonder if you have any thought on that.
I have no comment on the broad part of that, but if the implication is that folks in my administration didn't tell the truth under oath, if that's the implication, I find that offensive, unacceptable, and outrageous.
Governor,
Did you ask me one yet?
I have, yes.
Okay.
I'm gonna ask a second anyway. Do you think that your administration should start looking at potential hirees' social media postings as part of the hiring process?
Again, I've said all I'm going to say on this. I will say this, what I saw on social media from this particular individual relative to my values was completely offensive and unacceptable.
But speaking broadly, not about Dye specifically.
Governor, with the marijuana expungement bill on your desk, are there any concerns with that bill?
So there's a broader expungement bill. It's not just marijuana, it's a broader expungement bill, and we are literally, the quorum and the sessions for tomorrow were just called within the past day or two. We're working actively to hopefully find a good place on all the above.
Governor, just one on the water.
Sure, I would not normally give you this, but just because I have such affection
Right
for
on
you.
your left ear, though.
This is going to be the last one because I'm going to wait. Is that okay with you, Tom? All right.
You feel the state's ability to respond to this water crisis is inhibited by the Senate President's insistence, this path of progress insistence that we can't we shouldn't be spending or raising taxes until we cut government spending.
Well, it hasn't been so far in this particular case. Steve's got 27 bills, I think, that make up the path to progress. I've said to him privately, I've said to him publicly, there are a lot of those that we can support. In fact, I think I could say comfortably a majority of them, a significant majority. So let's put that aside for a second. I have to say I've not had any sense that that's holding us back in our ability to do what we have to do with the current challenges in Newark, which I'm confident we will get through. But no, it hasn't occurred.
How
to me.
many-
Thank
how
you all.
many more-
Thank you all. Good to see you all. And Michael, I won't forget you showed up.
Alrighty.